Hello my friends, and welcome to the Torture Museum, Series 1, Episode 3. Today, we are concentrating on the Head Crusher. If you haven't seen the other two episodes, I highly recommend it, The Devil's Fork and the Brazen Bull Torture. I'll leave the links in the description below. All you have to do is click on it. But for today, we're covering the Head Crusher, or in some places, the Skull Crusher. Let's begin. The Head Crusher torture device was a nasty piece of equipment. This metal device featured a plate or a bar for the victim to place his or her jaw on. Once the jaw was in place, usually by force from the torturer, a large metal cap was placed onto the condemned's head and held in place. The victim's hands and feet were bound, their feet chained to the table or by locks. Their hands were either chained behind their backs or by their side, actually being chained to the frame itself. I can't remember where, but I read somewhere that the torturer, rather that the victim's hands were chained to the frame itself, so the head sat more squarely in the frame, producing a better end result and a more even crush. The frame. The Head Crusher was usually made from iron or steel and was portable enough to be carried around from place to place. The device relied on torque to do the damage. We'll get into what torque is in a minute. There are many variations of the Head Crusher during the early medieval period, but at its core was the turning screw, and that remained the same throughout all the many generations. You see, as you turn the handle that was connected to the cap, it would turn clockwise, turning down the same way a screw rotates. As it rotates, the metal cap on the victim's head is lowered. The space shrinks. As the space shrinks, the torque is multiplied. The power is generated downwards from the turning bar, which is strong enough to shatter teeth, break cheekbones, and dislodge eyes from their sockets. Now, what is torque? That's a good question. In physics and mechanics, torque is the rotational equivalent of linear force. It is also referred to as the moment of force, or rotational force or turning effect, depending on the field of study. This concept was originated with the studies by Archimedes with the usage of levers. You see, in this diagram, which is on the screen now, if I tried to turn the bolt with my fingers, I wouldn't be able to turn it much, let alone be able to tighten it, as we all have tried in real life. But if I use the spanner, then all of a sudden, the turning motion becomes a lot easier. That motion of turning the bolt with the tool is generating torque. And that's the power generated by the Head Crusher. Now, let's get back to it. The execution. The Head Crusher was a one-way journey. There is no way back here. After a person is tortured on this device, there is no way he or she could survive. Even if by some very small, remote, tiny possibility that the victim actually survived, the amount of damage done to them internally and externally, they would want to die. Let me explain. As the torturer slowly turns the handle, and yes, my friends, this torturer would not rush. Then, repeat the process by turning the bar until he hears another creak or a crack. Yes, my friends, to be a torturer, you would be someone who enjoys dishing out pain and wouldn't want the process of agony to stop. As it turns, the gap between the head cap and plate decreases. Pressure builds up in the victim's face. As the torturer turns the bar, the victim's teeth get pushed together and initially clenched. He is now unable to move his mouth, unable to move his hands and feet, so he can't even move or moan or groan during the whole ordeal. Remember I said there were different variations of the device? Well, some torturers would opt to have spikes put onto the cap, so as it crushes, it also penetrates, causing a dual effect and maximum amount of pain. The next rotation would cause the victim's cheeks to puff up like a balloon, and their eyes would feel like they were tearing up. In fact, what's happening is that's all the pressure building up. You see, when the pressure builds up inside of a skull, it needs somewhere to go. And the only place is the eyes, ears, mouth, and nose. Another turn would break the victim's teeth, shattering them, leaving bloody, sharp fragments, and as the pressure builds, those fragments penetrate the opposing gums. Another turn, the cheekbones would implode in on itself, sending acute sharp pains to the brain, but at the same time giving a short respite and a feeling of relief, because by breaking the cheekbones, that causes more space for the victim to move freely. But alas, it doesn't last long. Yet another turn of the screw would cause the victim's eyes and ears to start to bleed. With every bit of turning of the head crusher, the pressure is building and building, and now it needs to escape. So the nose, eyes, and ears start to bleed. Now, this is where some sadistic torturers love to prolong the agony. They have a couple of choices here. Leave for a few hours and leave the victim in a state of perpetual agony, or what most of them opted for was they'd use a metal stick and tap, tap, tap the metal cap on the victim's head, sending vibrations through the head and into the body. It might not sound like much, but with all that pressure built up in the victim's face and all that pain and his exposed nerve endings of his teeth, vibrations through the face and through the gums is the last thing you want to be feeling. Another turn of the screw. Some torturers like to keep a little tray or bowl in front of the skull crusher. They did this for a good reason. The last half a turn would make the victim's eyes finally pop right out of their sockets. And, alas, the reason for the bowl. Now, the victim's teeth and jaw are shattered. Their cheekbones have sunk in because there isn't any bones to stabilize the face. Their nose and ears are bleeding profusely. Their eyes have been dislodged and lay in a bowl in front of them, but they are still attached via their stalks, veins, blood vessels, and tendons. But the torturer isn't finished yet. With a two-hand yank, the eye stalks are no more. Now, our poor victim can't scream because his face is under 1,500 pounds of pressure, square inch. He's now praying to die. He can't cry because his eyeballs are no more. There's no way back. Damage has been done on a level that can never heal, physically and mentally. There's no more. As the executioner makes the final half a turn, a loud crack penetrates the air. The skull has finally fragmented. With all his might, the torturer turns the handle, and as he does, the skull explodes, sending blood and bone everywhere. The torturer wipes the blood off his face and takes a long, hard breath and wipes the sweat from his brow. He's really worked hard tonight. He walks around the table to take a look at his masterpiece, his artwork. The hours of torture leaded to this. Finally, our victim can rest in peace. his ordeal is over. As I said before, this was Series 1, Episode 3 of the Torture Museum. Now, there are hundreds of torture devices and methods out there. Some are well known, but some are not. I will continue to research and make this series alongside my other programs. What torture ideas would you like to see? What devices? What methods? I would love to build a community of people like me who absolutely love horror. So don't forget, drop me a comment and put some ideas. If you think I deserved a like or a subscription, then you know what to do. Look out for all my other content on ghosts, demons, poltergeists, and also I've made a new series. I hope you like it. It's called The Dark Tales Creepypastas. Scary audio stories narrated by yours truly, The Dark Knight. So, I hope you liked today's video. I'll see you on the next one. This is The Dark Knight signing off. Peace.